Now, late last year, Preston brought out the F1 XS. So previously on my channel, I've done all about shotting, and people have asked me about this throughout my videos. When am I going to do certain types of floats? Now, I think this is probably the perfect time to do this for the F1 XS, is because it's coming up to that springtime. It's probably, what is it now, middle of February now, which I'm filming this. But what I want to do is I want to get my gear prepared and get ready for the sort of spring and coming months, because in a few weeks time hopefully we'll be catching on certain baits like pellets, meat, maggots on the bottom, and having these floats in your armoury is going to be a massive advantage, and I want to get them prepped up for myself. But also what I've done for you, I've done a shotting guide, so you can get them shotted up into your winders, nice and simple. So it's just a nice guide to get these shotted correctly. And what I'm going to do in this video as well is I'm going to talk about situations which I'd use to look to use certain sizes, and I'm going to talk through the shotting patterns which I'd use on these as well, because I feel like it's really important, because it's a little bit different to sort of me F1 maggot fishing where everything's like nice and light and slower faller baits, as where with these it's a lot different and you're using in different situations. So I'm going to get on the box now and talk you through each of these 4 sizes, what shot they take and what situations I'm going to use them in. So I'm going to shut up, get on the box and get the information which you want across to you now. Right, so that's enough waffling about what I'm going to do in this video, and let's get stuck into it now. So the XS F1 has got a thicker tip, so 1.7mm top. So what this means is it's going to show less indications and signs as, say, an F1 fine would, just because it's a little bit thicker. You can get a much cleaner bite, and that helps when you're fishing with different baits such as hard pellets, meat, maggots on the bottom, obviously fishing with worm on the hook and stuff like that I'm going to speak about. So I'm going to go through the sizes and talk about situations and shotting patterns I'd like to use in these situations. I've got the sizes on my phone. I'll try and remember them, but I might have to have a look if I don't. So the first of all is a 4x10. Now this is going to be perfect for sort of like you're fishing up to islands with hard pellets, where you're looking to fish through the water in a little nice strung out shotting pattern through the water, and just keep everything nice and simple. So like you're looking between depths of 18 inches and probably 2.5–3 foot. That's where I'd look to use that, where in conditions allow you, it's just a nice little float, just because it's nice and light and everything you can catch on the drop. Now what you find is in early springtime the water doesn't colour up as it does as much in the summer months, so you can still catch fish as it's falling through the water, just because the fish can see it a lot easier when they're obviously a bit more active and feeding. So shotting wise with this one, obviously I'll go through every float, and then at the end I'll put them on like a nice little bit so you can screenshot it or take a picture or write them down, so you've got them in your book ready to go for when you make your rig. So a 4x10 is going to take 5 number 11s and a number 12 stop. Now one thing I want to say about these floats, they're not all dotted down to a pimple. I'm just giving you a rough guide so you can get it dotted down so you can just see the orange, and then you can add trim a shot or take them off depending on whether you need that sort of like whether you can see for your float, or certain situations sometimes there's a wind on, you can't have everything dotted down, you need a lot more bristle showing. So just use it on what sort of conditions you're going to use. So 4x10 takes 5 number 11s and a number 12 stop, like I said, and I'd probably look to use that like sort of like a shirt button style, so a nice tight bulk. If I need to, where it's falling through, I can make it a little bit further in the last third of my rig, so I can have it the last further really, I can have it strung out if I need to slow the fall down, but also I can just fish a little bulk in one or a bulk on top of the hook length if I need to with that sort of float. So I'll just spin that up just so as I forgot. So the second float I'm going to talk about is the 4x12. This is probably one of my go-to ones when fishing on the bottom, say like places like here today at Western. I've just finished the 4th round of the Winter League, so I thought it'd be nice little to have a catch up. But yeah, 4x12, so I'm probably going to fish that anything from 3 foot up to 5 foot, just because it keeps everything nice and stable, and sort of scenarios where I'm going to be fishing meat on the bottom, hard pellets, maggots, say we're fishing with worms, say if I'm loose feeding casters somewhere, that's what sort of like float I'm going to be trying to fish on the bottom. But especially with like your meat fishing, you can slow your bait down nice and accurate. Now one thing I forgot to mention about the 4x10 is if you are fishing a shallow peg, say like 3 foot deep, say like Tunnel Barn, places like that where the venues are quite shallow now, they've silted up a little bit and you've got some pegs that are quite shallow, a light float is going to be key with that one, so that's with your 4x10. So going back to the 4x12 is probably one of my go-to floats on the bottom. It's nice and light, but it's not too light, if you know what I mean. I can get down to the bottom, everything registers right, and that's going to take 6 number 10s. Now obviously I can do this a little bit different. I can have a bulking 1 if I feel like I need to bomb the bait down to the bottom. Say if I'm fishing with worm, it's a quite heavy bait, so when the fish suck it in, they're going to register everything on the shot, and it's going to move a lot easier. If I need to string things out, so like my meat fishing falling through the water, or my maggot fishing on the bottom, or fishing with hard pellets, then I can string it all out in the bottom third, or a really tight shirt button, depending on what I'm trying to achieve with my bait. Now, a little simple rule is, if your baits are quite fast falling baits, such as like say corn, big hard pellets like 6 and 8 mil pellets, then I'd look to have my shot a little bit further down the line, like a little bit closer together. You don't really need that slow fall of the bait, as where if you were fishing with maggots, say lighter pellets like 4 mils meat, it's obviously a much smaller or much slower fall on there, so you're going to get an advantage of the bait falling through the water, and with these as well. So that's what the 4x12, it's probably my go-to one. Now one thing you can do is, one thing that I've actually caught on today is fishing with maggots and ground bait in the margins. So this is probably what I look to use if I feel like, here today at Western it's 4 foot in the edge. So if I look to use a 4x12, I'm either going to fish with a bulking 1 or a bulk on top of the hook length. I can put a piece of corn on, bunches of dead maggots. I can put some maggots on as well, pellets. I can do everything with that. But it's just depending on what I'm trying to do, is what shotting pattern I like to use with these floats. Hopefully I'm not boring you too much or making it too confusing. But what I think I like to do is, when I come onto these two sizes now, the 4x14 and 4x16, it might make more sense of what I was trying to say in the intro about being a bit more positive with my shotting pattern, the way I'm trying to fish, because obviously they've got a bit thicker bristles. I'm going to take these floats into my spring fishing and my summer fishing as well. It's probably going to one of my go-to sort of like for smaller carp and F1s, my floats, just because it's nice visible top, but you can dot it down, you don't get too many liners, and they're just a nice little float as well. So moving on to the 4x14, this is where you can get away with sort of like fishing with like a bulk 2 droppers, a bulk 1, bulk on the hook length, and spread out if you want as well. Now with this one, normally with the 4x14, I'd look to fish like 5 number 8s in the little bulk and then 2 number 10s down the line, so I get a nice slow fall. With this one, I'm going to use 7 number 9, just because I want everything nice and positive. I want it to register on the float. Like I said before, I'm going to be fishing in scenarios where I'm trying to catch bigger fish and trying to catch bigger weights. So this is where I'd look to use this float. Obviously it's 1.5 tip, like I said. But that's where the shotting pattern changes. Now I can have it strung out in obviously bottom third of the rig, which I talk about a lot. Bulk 2 droppers, just 6 inch apart, just so that 6 inch above your hook length, 6 inch the next one, and then your bulk 6 inch away. Just sits nicely, you can flick it in. But because of that positive shotting pattern, it's going to register on your float, like I keep mentioning. And then the last one is probably one I'd look to use when I'm trying to fish solely either in a bit deeper water, say like 6 to 9 foot, say if I was fishing down the clay pit, just as an example, with hard pellets. That's what I'd probably look to use, a 4x16 version. But also when I'm trying to fish hard on the bottom and fish quite quickly. So as it comes into the summer months, this is probably going to be my go-to float for the sort of like edge fishing here at Western, where you need your bait down to the bottom fast. You're going to be fishing with bulks on top of your hook length, so everything like baits like corn, bunches of dead maggots, things like that. So you want to be a nice, fast fishing float, but obviously a bit of stability and a bit of weight down it as well. So, for example, say if you were fishing casters on the bottom and you're fishing with worm, so you're throwing some casters in, or you're loose feeding some casters, and you want to go on the bottom. Fishing with a worm on the hook is it's not really renowned for fish falling through the water. If you've got a big piece of worm, or a full worm, or 2 worms if you're fishing down the edge, then having a nice big float, you just bomb it straight down to where you want to be fishing. And that's why I'd look to use a 4x16. Obviously takes 8 number 8s, so I can play about that. I can have two in a bulk, some in a 2 down the line, sorry, as a dropper, some in a bulk. I can play around, strung out. I keep mentioning it. I like to keep things simple in my fishing, and my shotting pattern replicate that. I don't want to confuse it too much, and it's when you're fishing on the bottom, I only really have them shotting patterns to talk about, and I like to just do them as I'm trying to fish as well. So like what I'm trying to say by that is, how I'm trying to achieve my bait on the bottom. So if I'm thinking I need my bait hard on the bottom, this is a simple scenario for you. So if I need my bait hard on the bottom, I'm going to look to use obviously a tighter shotting pattern, either a bulk on top of the hook length, a bulk and one, or a really tight strung out pattern. If I'm trying to slow my bait down and edge my chances of trying to catch on the drop or in that last third, then I'm going to string it out a little bit more. I'm going to use lighter floats, obviously smaller shot, and just spread it out and obviously hopefully catch loads of fish. So that's the 4 sizes covered for you. So we got all the shotting patterns covered, nice sizes. Obviously don't take it as a gospel it's going to shot it perfectly. You might need to take some off or trim some up, but this is just the rough guides. You can get them made up on your rig station into your tackle box, and so when that spring and summer months comes and then catching loads of fish comes, you've got your floats ready to go. You know what shot they take, and it just makes everything a lot simpler. And to be fair, it's made my life a little bit easier by just spending a little bit of time shotting them up, writing it down and making it there. So I've done the hard bit for you. You get on the bank and catch the fish, and I'll see you on the next one.